At Christmas dinner, my sister was given a dream lake house worth $350,000. Then, they handed me a letter, I read it aloud, and her smile vanished. I'm Emily, and this story happened 2 years ago when I was 27. My sister Charlotte was 30 at the time, and she'd always been the golden child in our family. Everything came easy to her. Straight A's without studying, full scholarship to Northwestern, landed her dream marketing job right out of college, married her college sweetheart, Ethan, who came from money. Meanwhile, I struggled through community college, worked 3 jobs to pay for nursing school, and lived in a studio apartment above Mrs. Chen's Chinese restaurant. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't bitter about working hard. I actually loved nursing and felt proud of what I'd accomplished on my own. But the way my parents, William and Catherine, constantly compared us was exhausting. Every family dinner was filled with Charlotte's latest achievements, while my accomplishments got a polite nod at best. The real issue started 2 years before this Christmas Eve. Charlotte and Ethan had been trying to have kids for about 3 years with no success. They'd gone through fertility treatments, specialists, the whole 9 yards. It was heartbreaking to watch, and I genuinely felt terrible for them. But Charlotte being Charlotte, she couldn't just quietly deal with her struggles. She had to make everyone else's life revolve around her pain. She started showing up to family gatherings late or leaving early because seeing me with kids was too triggering. The thing is, I didn't even have kids yet. I was dating my boyfriend James seriously, and we talked about marriage and kids, but we weren't in any rush. But Charlotte seemed to think that just because I could potentially have children easily, I was somehow flaunting my fertility. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving 2 years ago. James and I announced our engagement, and instead of congratulations, Charlotte burst into tears and ran to the bathroom. My parents followed her, leaving James and me sitting alone at the dinner table with my aunt and uncle looking incredibly uncomfortable. When they came back, my mother suggested we keep our wedding planning low-key so as not to upset Charlotte further. I was frustrated, but tried to be understanding. We planned a small wedding the following summer, and Charlotte was my maid of honor despite her obvious reluctance. She showed up to my bachelorette party for exactly 1 hour, spent my wedding day sighing dramatically during photos, and gave a toast that was more about her own struggles than celebrating James and me. But I bit my tongue because family is family, right? Things got worse after James and I got married the following summer. Charlotte started making comments about how easy my life was, how I didn't understand real problems, and how I should be grateful for my natural advantages. She seemed to forget that I'd worked my ass off to get through nursing school. While she'd had everything handed to her, the final straw came the Christmas after we got married. 2 years before the Christmas Eve I'm telling you about, Charlotte announced she and Ethan were taking a break from trying to have kids, and were going to focus on travel and their careers instead. My parents threw them a celebration of life changes party and invited the whole extended family. It was bizarre, but I supported her decision. 3 weeks later, James and I found out I was pregnant. We were thrilled but nervous about telling my family given Charlotte's sensitivity about the topic. We decided to wait until I was past the first trimester to share the news. At 12 weeks we gathered everyone for Sunday dinner and made our announcement. Charlotte's face went white, then red. Then she started screaming. She accused me of getting pregnant on purpose to rub it in her face. She said I was selfish and cruel and that I planned this to upstage her new life direction. My parents just sat there while she berated me, not saying a word in my defense. James finally spoke up and told Charlotte her reaction was completely inappropriate. She turned on him, saying he didn't understand what it was like to want something so desperately and watch other people get it without even trying. When James pointed out that we've been married for 7 months, and trying wasn't exactly shocking, Charlotte stormed out. But here's where it gets really messy. A week later, I had a miscarriage. It was devastating for James and me. We were both heartbroken and I took 2 weeks off work to recover physically and emotionally. Did Charlotte call to check on me, apologize for her reaction, offer any support at all? Nope. In fact, when my mom called to tell her what happened, Charlotte's response was that maybe this was the universe's way of teaching me not to take things for granted. I was done. Absolutely done with her and frankly pretty fed up with my parents for enabling her behavior. James and I spent the rest of that year focused on healing in our marriage with minimal contact with my family. But Charlotte wasn't finished. Over the following months, she started a social media campaign that was clearly directed at me, posting things like, "When people show you who they really are, believe them. And some people will never understand what real pain feels like." She'd make vague posts about family members who lack empathy and how some people get everything handed to them and still complain. What made it worse was that she'd post these things right after family events where we'd actually gotten along. Okay. We'd have a decent Sunday dinner, maybe even share a laugh or two, and then the next day there would be some passive-aggressive post about fake family members or people who pretend to care. It was like she couldn't stand having a normal moment with me without punishing me for it later. The social media thing got so bad that my friends started asking me about it. My college roommate Sarah called me one day and said, is everything okay with you and Charlotte? Because her Facebook posts are concerning. I had to explain the whole situation to Sarah, who was horrified. She couldn't believe that a 30-something professional was carrying on like a teenager on social media. But the absolute worst incident happened about 7 months after my miscarriage. James and I had gone to our friend's baby shower, a couple from nursing school who'd been trying for years and had just had their first baby through IVF. It was a beautiful, emotional celebration, and James and I were genuinely happy to be there supporting our friends. I posted one innocent photo from the shower, just me and James with the new parents, all of us smiling. I didn't even mention babies or pregnancy in the caption. Just so happy for these two amazing people. Within an hour, Charlotte had posted a long rant about people who flaunt their ability to be around babies and how some people use other people's joy to make themselves feel better about their own failures. The post didn't mention me by name, but anyone who knew our family situation would know exactly who she was talking about. Several of our relatives commented asking if everything was okay, and I ended up deleting my own post because I was so embarrassed by the drama Charlotte had stirred up. That night, I called my parents, furious. I told them about Charlotte's post and how humiliating it was to have her constantly monitoring my social media and turning everything into a public attack on me. My mother's response: "Well, honey, maybe you could be more sensitive about what you post. You know, Charlotte's struggling." That was the moment I realized my parents weren't just enabling Charlotte. They were actively participating in making me responsible for managing her emotions. It wasn't enough that I had to walk on eggshells around her in person. Now I was supposed to curate my entire social media presence around her feelings too. James was furious when I told him about the phone call. He said we should go no contact with my whole family until they started treating me with basic respect. Part of me wanted to do exactly that, but I couldn't bring myself to cut off my parents completely. They weren't malicious people. They were just so focused on keeping Charlotte from falling apart that they couldn't see how they were throwing me under the bus in the process. The situation got even more complicated when Charlotte started involving Ethan's family in her campaign against me. Ethan's parents, David and Margaret, were lovely people who had always been kind to me. But Charlotte started telling them her version of events, painting me as the cruel sister who deliberately got pregnant to hurt her and who then played the victim when I lost the baby. I found out about this when Margaret called me out of the blue one day. She was clearly uncomfortable, but she felt she needed to say something. "Emily, I hope you know that, David, and I don't believe what Charlotte's been saying about you. We've known you for years, and we know you're not the kind of person who would deliberately hurt someone you love." I was mortified that Charlotte had dragged Ethan's parents into our mess, but also grateful that Margaret had reached out. She told me that Charlotte had been calling them regularly, crying about how I'd turned the whole family against her and how I was manipulating our parents into taking my side. Margaret said it had gotten so bad that Ethan had finally had to ask Charlotte to stop involving his parents in our drama. That conversation with Margaret made me realize just how far Charlotte's victim narrative had spread. She wasn't just posting vague things on social media. She was actively telling people that I was some kind of mastermind who'd orchestrated a campaign against her. In her version of events, I was the villain who got pregnant on purpose to hurt her, then used my miscarriage to gain sympathy and turn everyone against her. The irony wasn't lost on me. Charlotte was accusing me of playing the victim while she spent every day posting about how mistreated she was by her cruel, insensitive family. She was claiming I was manipulative while she was literally manipulating every conversation and every family gathering to be about her pain and her needs. The worst part was watching my parents get more and more exhausted by it all. My father, who'd always been the peacekeeper in the family, started looking genuinely stressed every time Charlotte's name came up. My mother developed this nervous habit of immediately changing the subject whenever anyone mentioned babies, pregnancy, or anything that might set Charlotte off. Family gatherings became exercises in collective anxiety management. Everyone walking on eggshells, everyone monitoring their words, everyone responsible for Charlotte's emotional state except Charlotte herself. If she had a bad day, it became everyone's problem. If she was triggered by something, it was everyone's responsibility to fix it. I started dreading family events completely. Even when Charlotte was in a good mood, There was always this undercurrent of tension. This sense that one wrong word or topic could set off an explosion. James and I would drive home from these gatherings, emotionally exhausted, feeling like we just navigated a minefield for 3 hours. The breaking point for James came during Easter dinner about 7 months before the Christmas I'm telling you about. We were having a nice meal. Everyone getting along when my aunt mentioned that her daughter had just gotten engaged. It was innocent conversation, just family news. But I saw Charlotte's face change immediately. Instead of congratulating her cousin, Charlotte got very quiet and then excused herself from the table. She came back 10 minutes later with red eyes, clearly having been crying and the dinner shifted. Everyone started overcompensating, trying to cheer Charlotte up, asking if she was okay, making a big fuss over her. Meanwhile, my cousin's engagement, what should have been a happy family moment, got completely overshadowed by Charlotte's reaction to it. The bathroom, the entire mood of. My aunt looked embarrassed for bringing it up, and my cousin's good news got maybe 2 more minutes of conversation before everyone moved on to safer topics. James was quiet on the drive home, and when I asked him what was wrong, he exploded. "This is insane, Emily. One person's emotions are controlling your entire family. Everyone is so busy managing Charlotte's feelings that they can't even celebrate normal life events anymore." He was right, and I knew it. But I felt trapped. These were my parents, my family, and despite everything, I loved them. I didn't want to cut them off. But I also couldn't keep subjecting James and myself to this toxic dynamic. That's when we made the decision to pull back significantly from family events. We started declining about half the invitations, making excuses about work schedules and other commitments. When we did go, we'd arrive later and leave earlier, minimizing our exposure to the drama. My parents noticed, of course, and they weren't happy about it. They started making comments about how we were abandoning the family and how I was punishing everyone because of issues with Charlotte. They couldn't see that their own enabling behavior was driving us away. They just saw it as me being dramatic and holding grudges. The worst part was watching my parents get more and more desperate to fix things, which only made them enable Charlotte more. They called me with increasingly elaborate plans for family gatherings that would somehow magically make everyone get along. They'd suggest we all go to family therapy together or take a family vacation or have some kind of intervention. But none of their solutions involved Charlotte actually changing her behavior or taking involved everyone else responsibility for accommodating her emotions and finding new ways to avoid triggering her. It was like they thought they could manage their way out of the problem without ever addressing the root cause. So by the time the Christmas Eve I'm telling you about rolled around 2 years after my miscarriage, I was pretty much done with all of them. James and I had been trying to conceive again, but we decided not to share any news with my family until absolutely necessary. We were planning to spend Christmas morning together and then make a brief appearance at my parents' house for dinner. But then my mother called 3 days before Christmas Eve, practically begging us to come for their Christmas Eve gift exchange instead. The damage she'd caused. She said Charlotte had been having a really hard time lately, and it would mean the world to have everyone together. Against my better judgment, I agreed. So, Christmas Eve arrives, and James and I show up to my parents' house around 7 p.m. The living room is decorated to the nines. My mother had gone all out with garland, lights, and a massive tree. Charlotte and Ethan are already there, and Charlotte actually seems to be in a good mood for once. She hugs me when we arrive, which hasn't happened in over a year. We have dinner first, prime rib, my dad's specialty, and for once, conversation flows pretty normally. Charlotte asks about my work. I ask about her latest marketing campaign, and my parents seem relieved that we're getting along. Ethan's being more talkative than usual, and James is making an effort to keep things light. I start thinking maybe this Christmas won't be a disaster after all. After dinner, we move to the living room for gifts. My parents always go overboard, but this year seems especially extravagant. There are piles of wrapped presents under the tree, way more than usual. "Okay," my dad says, rubbing his hands together with excitement. "Catherine and I have some very special gifts this year, so we want to do things a little differently. We're going to save the big surprises for last. We start with the usual stuff. Sweaters, books, gift cards, a bottle of wine. Charlotte gets James an expensive bottle of scotch he'd mentioned liking, and I actually feel hopeful that maybe she's turning over a new leaf. James and I give everyone thoughtful gifts we'd picked out months earlier back when I was still trying to maintain family relationships. Then my parents exchange a look and my mother gets up to retrieve something from the kitchen. She comes back with a large envelope and hands it to Charlotte. "This is from both of us," my dad says, his voice thick with emotion. We wanted to do something really special for you and Ethan this year. Charlotte opens the envelope and her eyes go wide. She pulls out what looks like a deed or some kind of official document. And Ethan leans over to read it with her. Oh my God, Charlotte whispers, and then she starts crying. Happy tears, though she's smiling so wide I think her face might crack. Ethan, they bought us the lake house. They bought us the cabin at Lake Geneva. For context, this lake house was a place we'd vacationed at a few times when Charlotte and I were kids. It belonged to some friends of my parents, and we'd always talked about how amazing it would be to own a place like that. It was this gorgeous 3-bedroom cabin right on the water with a private dock and everything. I'd looked it up online once out of curiosity and saw similar places going for around $350,000. Charlotte jumps up and hugs both my parents, still crying. Ethan shakes my dad's hand and thanking them over and over. It's clearly a massive, incredibly generous gift, like life-changing generous. We know how much you two love it there, my mother says, wiping away her own tears. And we thought it would be perfect for when you're ready to start your family. Kids love the lake. I'm sitting there trying to process this. $350,000 minimum for a vacation home. I mean, I knew my parents were comfortable. My dad had done well in commercial real estate and my mom had inherited some money from her parents, but this was on another level entirely. James squeezes my hand and I can tell he's thinking the same thing I am. We've been saving for 2 years to buy our first house, and we're still about $30,000 short of having enough for a decent down payment in our area. But I push down the jealousy and try to be happy for them. Charlotte's actually being gracious and sweet, thanking my parents repeatedly and talking about all the memories they'll make there. For a moment, it feels like old times before everything got so complicated and bitter. All right, my dad says after the excitement dies down a bit. Emily and James, we have something for you too as well. My mother reaches under the tree and pulls out a small envelope much smaller than Charlotte's. She hands it to me with a smile that seems a little forced now that I think about it. Go ahead, honey. Open it, she encourages. I open the envelope expecting maybe a nice gift certificate or tickets to something. Instead, I find a single folded piece of paper. It looks like it was torn from a legal pad and it's covered in my mother's handwriting. Read it out loud, my dad suggests. We want everyone to hear this. I unfold the paper and my heart starts racing as I read the first few lines to myself. This can't be what I think it is. I look up at my parents and they're both watching me expectantly. Charlotte and Ethan are also looking at me, waiting. I start, my voice catching slightly. Are you sure you want me to read this out loud? Of course, sweetie, my mother says. It's something we've been thinking about for a long time, and we want the whole family to hear it. I look at James, who nods encouragingly, and then back at the letter. My hands are actually shaking a little as I begin to read. Dear Emily and James, I read, my voice growing stronger as I realize what this is. We have watched you both work incredibly hard to build your life together, and we are so proud of the adults you've become. Emily, your dedication to your nursing career and your strength through difficult times has shown us what real character looks like. Charlotte's smile is still plastered on her face, but I can see confusion starting to creep in around her eyes. I continue reading. James, you have been the perfect partner for our daughter, supporting her dreams and standing by her side when others in this family failed to do so. Now Charlotte's smile is definitely wavering. Ethan looks uncomfortable and my parents are watching my face intently as I read their words back to them. We know you've been saving to buy your first home and we know it's been a struggle on your salaries, especially with student loans and the cost of living. We've watched you both make sacrifices and never once ask us for help, even when we know times were tight. My voice is getting stronger now because I'm starting to understand what this letter is, and a warm feeling is spreading through my chest. We also know, I continue, that you've had to deal with unfair treatment from certain family members, and that you've handled that situation with more grace and maturity than anyone should have too. You've been excluded from family events, had your achievements minimized, and even had your personal tragedy used against you. Charlotte's face has gone completely white now. The smile is gone, and she's staring at me like I'm reading her diary out loud, which in a way, I guess I am. So, I read on, my voice now clear and strong. We have decided to give you the wedding gift we never properly gave you, plus a little extra for everything you've had to endure. I pause here because the next line takes my breath away. We are giving you $45,000 toward the purchase of your first home, and we're also covering all of your remaining student loan debt, which we calculate to be approximately $35,000. James gasps beside me. I can barely believe what I'm reading, but I continue. This is not a loan. This is not something you need to pay back or feel guilty about. This is what we should have done when you got married. Instead of walking on eggshells around someone else's jealousy and insecurity, Charlotte makes a choking sound. Ethan reaches over and puts a hand on her arm, but she shakes him off. We hope this helps you start your family in your own home, surrounded by people who truly support and love you. We also hope this makes up in some small way for the times we failed to defend you when you needed us most. I look up from the letter and Charlotte is staring at me with an expression I've never seen before. It's like she's seeing me for the first time, or maybe seeing herself for the first time. Ethan looks like he wants to disappear into the couch cushions, but I'm not done reading yet. We love both our daughters, I continue. But we have realized that we have enabled behavior that has hurt our family and hurt you specifically. We hope that going forward, all of our family relationships can be based on mutual respect and genuine kindness rather than walking on eggshells around one person's emotions. The room is completely silent now, except for my voice. We know this letter might cause some drama, but we're tired of pretending that the way things have been is okay. It's not okay. You deserve better from all of us. I take a breath and read the final lines. Use this money to build the life you want with people who celebrate your happiness instead of resenting it. We love you both, and we're proud to be your parents, Mom and Dad. I fold the letter back up and look around the room. James has tears in his eyes and is squeezing my hand so tight it almost hurts. My parents are both watching Charlotte, who looks like she's been slapped. What the hell is this? Charlotte finally says, her voice low and dangerous. It's exactly what it sounds like, my father says calmly. We're giving Emily and James some financial help just like we gave you and Ethan the lake house. This isn't the same thing at all. Charlotte stands up, her voice getting louder. You just humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look like some kind of monster. The letter didn't make you look like anything, my father says calmly. Your parents wrote down facts. Facts about how you've treated your sister and facts about how we've enabled it. Charlotte whirls around to face me. You planned this, didn't you? You somehow convinced them to do this. This is your revenge for me not kissing your ass when you got pregnant. Charlotte, Ethan says quietly. Maybe we should just... No. She snaps at him. They give us a house, but then they have to ruin it by making it all about Emily and her victim complex. Everything always has to be about poor Emily and how hard her life is. James stands up. That's enough. You're proving their point right now. Oh, shut up, James, Charlotte snarls. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does, he says calmly. And I can see he's been thinking about this conversation for a while. I've watched you treat my wife like garbage for years. I've watched her cry after family dinners because of things you've said to her. I've watched her blame herself for your infertility problems because you made her feel like her existence was somehow offensive to you. I never said that. You didn't have to say it directly, I say, standing up as well. You said it with your actions. You said it when you screamed at me for getting pregnant. You said it when you told Mom that my miscarriage was the universe teaching me a lesson. You said it every time you made a social media post about family members who don't understand real pain. Charlotte's face crumples. That's not... I didn't mean... Yes, you did, my father says firmly. Charlotte, we love you. We will always love you. But the way you've treated Emily is unacceptable. And the way we've enabled it is unacceptable. You enabled it? Charlotte laughs bitterly. You just gave her almost $85,000 while calling me jealous and insecure in front of my husband. How is that enabling me? We gave you a house worth around $350,000, my mother points out. We're not exactly leaving you empty-handed here. That's not the point, Charlotte is full-on yelling now. The point is that you've decided I am the villain in this family and now you're rewarding Emily for being the victim. No, I say, and my voice is steady now. They're not rewarding me for being a victim. They're acknowledging that I've worked hard and handled a difficult situation with maturity, something you've never been able to do. Difficult situation. Charlotte's voice goes up an octave. What difficult situation? You got everything you wanted. You got married. You got your nursing degree. You have a husband who worships you. What exactly has been so difficult about your life? The room goes quiet and I realize this is it. This is the moment I've been building toward for 2 years. The moment where I either back down and let Charlotte continue to rewrite history, or I stand up for myself once and for all. You want to know what's been difficult? I ask, my voice getting stronger. Watching my sister turn into someone I don't recognize because she can't handle other people being happy. Having to tiptoe around my own life accomplishments because they might trigger you. Planning my wedding around your emotional state. Being screamed at for getting pregnant and then being told my miscarriage was some kind of cosmic justice. Charlotte opens her mouth to interrupt. But I keep going. Having my parents suggest I postpone my engagement announcement because it might upset you. Being asked to keep my wedding low-key so you wouldn't feel bad. Watching you give a maid of honor speech that was entirely about your own problems. Having you skip my bachelorette party because being around happy people was too triggering. I'm on a roll now and 2 years of suppressed frustration is pouring out. But you know what the most difficult part has been? I continue. Realizing that my big sister, the person I looked up to my whole life, had turned into someone who could only be happy if everyone around her was miserable. Someone who sees other people's joy as a personal attack. Someone who thinks the world owes her something because life didn't go exactly according to her plan. Charlotte is crying now. But I'm not done. I have been nothing but supportive of you. When you were struggling with fertility, I was there. When you and Ethan decided to take a break from trying, I supported that decision. When you needed space from family events, I understood. But none of that mattered because you had already decided that I was your enemy. You decided that my happiness somehow diminished yours. That's not true, Charlotte whispers. Yes, you did, Ethan says quietly. And everyone turns to look at him. He's been mostly quiet through this exchange, watching his wife with an expression that's part love, part exhaustion, part determination. I realize he's been waiting for this moment, maybe hoping for it. Charlotte, it is true. You know it's true, Ethan. Charlotte's voice breaks. No, Charlotte. I love you, but I'm not going to sit here and watch you do this anymore. Your sister lost a baby, and you told her mother it was the universe teaching her a lesson. Do you understand how cruel that is? Do you understand how that sounded? Charlotte covers her face with her hands. I was hurting. I was in pain. And I wasn't thinking clearly. You're always in pain, Ethan says, and his voice is gentle but firm. It's clear he's had this conversation with her before, probably many times. There's always some reason why you can't be happy for other people. There's always some excuse for why everyone else needs to manage their lives around your emotions. This is rich, Charlotte says, dropping her hands and glaring at Ethan. Now my own husband is ganging up on me too. I'm not ganging up on you. I'm telling you the truth. I've been telling you this truth for months, but you won't listen to me either. Oh, this is getting into territory I wasn't expecting. James and I exchange glances, and I can tell he's thinking the same thing I am. This is about more than just Charlotte's relationship with me. What's that supposed to mean? Charlotte demands. Ethan looks around the room, clearly uncomfortable with the audience, but he presses on. It means that this doesn't just affect your relationship with Emily. It affects our marriage too. It affects everything. You can't be genuinely happy about anything because you're too busy keeping score with everyone else. That's not fair, is it? Ethan asks. When's the last time you celebrated something good happening to someone else without finding a way to make it about what's wrong with our life? When's the last time you felt actual joy about anything that didn't involve someone else failing or struggling? Charlotte stares at him and I can see her trying to come up with an answer. The fact that she can't seem to find one tells us everything we need to know. My father clears his throat. Maybe we should all take a break. And no, Charlotte says, and her voice has changed. The fight has gone out of it, and she sounds exhausted. No, don't stop on my account. Clearly this is some kind of intervention that you all planned. We didn't plan anything, my mother says. We just decided we were tired of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Charlotte looks around the room at all of us, and for the first time in years, I see something other than anger or self-pity in her expression. I think it might be shame. So, what now? She asks. You've all told me what a terrible person I am. You've given me money while making sure I know it's because I'm such a burden. Jake's decided our marriage is broken because I'm not positive enough. What exactly do you want from me now? We want you to get help, my mother says simply. We want you to talk to someone about why other people's happiness feels like a threat to you. We want you to figure out how to be happy for your sister when good things happen to her. And we want you to apologize," my father adds. "Not a fake apology where you excuse your behavior, but a real one where you acknowledge the hurt you've caused." Charlotte looks at me, and for a moment I see the sister I used to know. The one who taught me how to braid friendship bracelets and always shared her Halloween candy with me. "I'm sorry," she says, and her voice is so quiet I almost don't hear her. "I'm sorry too," I say, because despite everything I am. I'm sorry it came to this. I'm sorry she's hurting. I'm sorry our family got so broken. "No," Charlotte says, shaking her head. "Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I did. I know I did. I don't know how to stop." Ethan reaches over and takes her hand. "You stop by getting help. You stop by doing the work to figure out why you think love is a limited resource, that someone else getting it means there's less for you." "I don't know if I can," Charlotte admits. "I don't know if I know how to be any other way anymore." "Then learn," my mother says firmly. "Because this version of you isn't sustainable. Not for your marriage, not for your family relationships, and not for your own happiness." Charlotte nods, tears streaming down her face. "The lake house," she says suddenly. "You should give the lake house to Emily too. She deserves it more than I do." "Charlotte, no," I say immediately. "That's not what this is about. This isn't about who deserves what more. This is about treating each other with kindness and respect." "But I don't know how to do that anymore," she says. "I don't remember how to be happy for other people. I don't remember how to not be angry all the time." "Then we'll help you remember," I say, and I realize I mean it. "But you have to want to change, you have to want to do better." Charlotte looks around the room again, and I can see her taking inventory of all the relationships she's damaged, all the bridges she's burned or is in the process of burning. "I want to do better," she says finally. "I want to be the kind of person who can be genuinely happy when my sister gets good news. I want to be the kind of wife who doesn't make everything about what's wrong with our life. I want to be the kind of daughter who doesn't make family gatherings a minefield." "Then that's where we start," Ethan says, squeezing her hand. The room falls quiet for a moment, and I realize that this Christmas Eve has been more honest and raw than at any family gathering we've had in years, maybe ever. "So," James says, breaking the silence, "should we maybe open the rest of the presents?" Everyone laughs, even Charlotte, and the tension in the room breaks just a little bit. We don't magically solve all our problems that night, of course. Charlotte and Ethan leave shortly after, with Charlotte promising to start looking for a therapist after the holidays. My parents, James and I stay up talking until well past midnight, working through years of built-up resentment and hurt feelings. But that letter changed everything. Not just because of the money, although I won't lie. Being debt-free and having a down payment for our house was life-changing. It changed everything because it was the first time my parents had acknowledged out loud that the family dynamic we'd all been living with wasn't working. It was the first time someone had called Charlotte's behavior what it was instead of making excuses for it. Most importantly, it was the first time I felt like my parents saw me clearly, not as Charlotte's little sister or as a consolation prize, but as their daughter who deserved to be supported and defended. Charlotte did start therapy, and it's been a slow process, but she's been working on herself. She and Ethan are doing better, and she's been making genuine efforts to repair our relationship. She still has bad days and she still struggles with jealousy and resentment sometimes, but she's trying. She apologized properly a few months later, acknowledging specifically what she'd done wrong and how it had affected me. We're not back to where we were as kids, and we may never be, but we're building something new, something more honest and adult. And that letter, that beautiful, brutal letter that laid everything out in the open, was the beginning of that process. James and I bought our house 5 months later, and Charlotte was genuinely happy for us. She even helped us move. It was a small thing, but it meant the world to me. Sometimes the best gift isn't what's wrapped under the tree. Sometimes it's the truth delivered with love and the hope that things can get better.